Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Commsave Conversations, our regular podcast. Today we've got a special edition of the podcast where we're looking back at Commsave's 35 years to date. We're celebrating our 35th anniversary on the 7th of August, and I'm joined today by someone who is very well positioned to be able to tell us all about the history of the credit union, as well as looking at the position we're in today and where the future takes us. And that is our director, member of the board of directors, Richard Munro. Richard, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
If you'd like to maybe just give everybody at home just a bit of an overview of your background with Commsave, a little bit about your role.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me along today, James. I've been a member of Commsave since we started back in August 1991, and I was asked to join the board in 1994, so I've been a director for a considerable number of years.
So Commsave has its origins, as I'm sure most of our members will be aware, in Royal Mail. We were formed as a postal workers credit union for Royal Mail workers in Northampton back in 1991. Tell us a little bit about what the impetus was for that to happen, where the kind of initiative came from and what that whole process looked like.
Yeah, so the credit union, which was founded in August 1991, was a collaboration between management, trade unions, and our welfare officer at the time, lady by the name of Maggie Tomlinson, who went on to become a chair of the credit union. And collectively, they've been identified, and there were concerns about some of the postal staff accessing illegal money lending, being subject to loan sharking, and collectively the management, the trade union, the welfare officer worked together to start the credit union and to get it off the ground initially. And
we're talking clearly 35 years ago, the sector as a whole looked very, very different. Credit unions in this country were far less developed, I think, than they are now. Can you give us a bit of a feel as to what a credit union back then typically looked like? So I feel like it would be quite different from what people maybe know today.
So credit unions back in the early 1990s were still relatively new in Great Britain. The first legislation which enabled credit unions was the Credit Union Act of 1979, and there have been some good starts but fairly slow growth. At that time, there were lots of small local credit unions, often founded in villages, towns, affiliated to churches, community groups, and some employment groups, as Commsave was at the time. So we started as Northamptonshire Postal Workers Credit Union. It was open to any Royal Mail employee that worked within the county of Northamptonshire.
And obviously since then we've undergone quite a lot of development and expansion. I understand that there were several phases of expansion within Royal Mail before we even sort of look outside of that, sort of going regional and then national.
That's right. So although we started for postal workers in Northamptonshire, very soon our connections within the East Midlands grew within the postal sector, which extended to Coventry, Warwickshire, Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, Leicestershire, and members of Royal Mail staff in those areas were coming to us and saying, why can't we join? This sounds fantastic. An easy way to save through payroll, offering credit at affordable and responsible rates. So they wanted to join as well. So our board took a decision to open up our common bond to the East Midlands, and we actually rebranded and renamed to East Midlands Postal Workers Credit Union.
And then obviously once we expanded beyond the confines of the East Midlands, we were taking in Royal Mail employees from right around the UK.
That's right. Originally not the whole of the UK, because postal workers and credit unions in Northern Ireland were subject to different regulation. Yep. But certainly we expanded out to cover the whole of England, Scotland and Wales, and subsequently when Northern Ireland came within the regulation, we immediately expanded into Northern Ireland and opened up our services to members in Northern Ireland too.
Well, I think it's one of those things we can proudly say we have members from Royal Mail in every postcode right around the UK right now.
Indeed we do, going from the Scilly Isles all the way up to the Scottish Highlands.
Absolutely. And then over the last 10 years, we've undergone different types of expansions. So expanding beyond Royal Mail Group to firstly taking anybody that worked for the UK Government Civil Service back in 2016.
Yes, that's right. The board took a strategic decision to expand and diversify membership. There were some specific concentration risks about just serving Royal Mail employees, and so the board took a strategic decision and we opened up to other communication and logistics companies, and then we won a tender with the Department for Work and Pensions, who were looking to work with a credit union to offer payroll deduction for their employees. And as a result of that change, we opened up to the whole of the UK civil service, which we currently serve today. And following on from that, in April 2020, we merged with a local credit union based here in Northampton. It was a community-based credit union, which enabled us to also take into membership anybody that lived or worked in the Northamptonshire area. And then finally, our final part of the current jigsaw is anybody that works in the fishing sector. So that could be the share fishermen, fish processors or fishmongers. They too can join Commsave as members today.
So I suppose the expansion to cover Northamptonshire was quite a significant change for the credit union, because we'd always been employer-based prior to that, which moving to a community-based, or to offering both employer and community-based, is quite a different requirement in terms of the kind of considerations a credit union has.
That's right. So we were fortunate that some of the staff from the Harvest Money, which was the credit union we merged with, came across to work with us. And so they was able to give us insights into the differences between the needs of a community financial organisation and what we've been used to, which is predominantly people that were in employment. And so that brought a different facet and different sets of considerations that the credit union needed to take into account.
I suppose people watching this might be thinking, the credit union that's headquartered in Northampton and has operated out of Northamptonshire for its whole of its 35 years, how on earth do they end up serving the fishing industry when we're about as far from the coast as it's possible to be? Tell us a little bit about that process with working with organisations in the seafarers sector. That's
a really interesting story, because there are well-known issues about coastal fishing communities, and the Seafarers Charity, which supports those areas, sponsored some research by John Moores University based in Liverpool, and one of their conclusions was that the fishing sector should open up a credit union. And it's not easy to found a credit union these days, and so they decided to try and partner with an existing credit union, and they approached us to see if we would be prepared to do that. And with some support from the Seafarers Charity, we opened up our membership to, as I've said previously, to share fishers, the fish processors and the fishmongers. So that's how that came about. And you're right, we're equidistant from the East Coast and the West Coast, but that does enable us to serve the whole of the fishing communities across the whole of the UK, including Northern Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking at some figures on this the other day. Since we first started working with seafarers, we've made more than £1 million worth of loans to share fishers who are looking for things like safety improvements on their boats, new equipment to help them become more productive and to expand their activity. So I think it's a really good news story for the credit union sector to be supporting that particular group of workers.
Absolutely, and I think it actually just reinforces the credit union ethos of people helping people.
Yeah.
We are a membership organisation. We're owned by members. We're run by a board of volunteer directors. The organisation is accountable to its members, and we're here to serve our members. We don't serve external shareholders. Any surplus that we make remains within the credit union by either offering better services, better products, or return to our members in the form of a competitive dividend on savings every year, or better loan rates. So it's credit unions are a different type of organisation. We're financial cooperatives, and it's all grounded in that people helping people.
So you touched on how it's actually quite difficult to set up a new credit union these days. It's not really something that we see people doing. There's been quite a lot of consolidation and mergers in the credit union sector over the last 15 years or so, I suppose. The number of credit unions in the UK has dropped, but that's a measure of the fact that people are working together, they've amalgamated, and the actual reach that they have has increased. I think one of the key drivers behind that has been changes in regulation, what's actually required of our volunteer directors. Can you maybe give us a bit of an insight from your personal perspective as someone that's been involved under different regulatory regimes, what the demands are on a volunteer director? Like, what does your role actually look like?
So each credit union is led by a board of generally volunteer directors, and they're really there for setting the strategy of the organisation. They're the members' representatives, so they set the strategy. They need to make sure that the organisation is performing well, that they're recruiting the right leaders within the organisation, the chief exec in our case, and holding the chief exec to account for the performance of the organisation. So it's really a strategic, the board is a strategic entity, and also gives oversight and reassurance to the members that the credit union is there for them, it's there to support them.
Yeah.
Comes back to the people helping people.
And in terms of the key people that have helped to shepherd Commsave through this first 35-year period, I think there are a few key names that stick out. I think one of the most obvious is Derek Jackson. Tell us about Derek.
Yeah, well, I could list dozens and dozens of key people, but let's just pick one or two people that we've worked with over the years. So you mentioned Derek Jackson. So Derek and I used to sit on opposite sides of the table. I was a senior manager in Royal Mail, and Derek was a senior trade union representative. And quite often those relationships at times were quite hostile. But Derek and I were able to step out of those negotiations or disagreements and work together on something for the good of Royal Mail employees in Northamptonshire. So, as I say, Derek was a senior trade union representative. He was our first chairman of the credit union. He worked as chair and secretary of the board for a number of years. He then stepped away from the board, but then once he retired and had more time, he joined the board again and served on the board until sadly his death. So Derek was a really key individual, and it was Derek that asked me to join the board. They were looking for certain different skill sets, and Derek thought I had something to offer, and I took him up on that back in 1994. And I really enjoyed working with Derek. Derek really committed to improving people's lives, not just as a trade unionist, but also through the credit union. There was also some other key people, a guy called Harry Johnson. Harry was the technical services manager at Royal Mail in Northampton at the time, and Harry was on the road to retirement, let's put it that way, and he wanted something a little bit less stressful, although coming to a credit union isn't necessarily less stressful. But Harry was our very first employee, and Royal Mail supported us, actually paid Harry's salary for the first 3 years that he worked for us. So Royal Mail were very helpful in getting the credit union up and running, and Harry served us right through to his retirement, and sadly died a number of years ago. One of our other key people, and it would be remiss of me not to mention Amanda Ivey. So Amanda was our longest serving CO. She served Commsave as CO for over 18 years, and she took us from a credit union that had 2,000 members. And when she left, there was almost 30,000 members. We had £2 million in assets, and when she left us, we had about £70 million in assets. So Amanda oversaw tremendous growth during those 18 years that she was SCO, and we wouldn't be where we are today without Amanda's dedication, her knowledge, her skills.
Yeah, and I think any list of the key people that's been involved with Commsave would have to include yourself, which is why we're so pleased to have you here today. But maybe you could talk to us a little bit about your motivation, I guess. That clearly, if you've dedicated a significant part of your life to helping to make Commsave work and to reach the position it is today, what is it that kind of drives you, that the value you get from being a key part of the credit union sector?
So I read about credit unions before our credit union was founded, and I thought this sounds a really great idea, but didn't really do anything with it. And then, as I said, the collaboration between trade union managers and the welfare officer got up and running, and that's why I was keen to join at the outset. And then when I was invited to join the board because they thought I had some skills to offer, that really got me involved. And it comes back to something I've mentioned previously about people helping people. That sort of leans into my own personal beliefs, my own personal view of the world. I think that we're on this planet for a relatively short time. We should do what we can to help each other. And actually, the credit union model of actually being a membership organisation, doesn't matter if you've got £2 in your account or if you've got £120,000 in your account, you get one vote around your general meeting. Yeah. So it's quite a very democratic organisation. Anybody can take part. Anybody can stand for election to our board of directors. So it leans into my own personal beliefs and my view of the world as it should be.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think it definitely speaks to the value that we all get from working for the type of organisation that the credit union actually is, where I think you can see pretty much day to day the impact that you actually have on people's lives through the conversations that you have with members and the work that we all do. So I think that definitely chimes with myself as well. So looking at where Commsave is today, we are one of the larger credit unions in the UK. We've got more than 40,000 members now, right around the whole of the country. And as we've touched on, we have an impact across different sectors, employment sectors, and in our local communities here in Northamptonshire as well. There are perhaps a few other bits that members might not be so aware of. Things like our partnership with credit unions in the USA, for example. I know that you were part of that process. Tell us a bit about how we work with them.
Yeah, as we were growing as a credit union, quite often we could look to bigger organisations, and if we wasn't quite sure how to do something, or we had an idea but wasn't sure how to implement it, there were large credit unions that we could speak to, and we were a very, very collaborative sector. We help each other. And as Commsave grew bigger and bigger, there was fewer and fewer bigger credit unions that we could ask for their advice. So we reached out to the state of Georgia in the United States, and I helped our trade body, the Association of British Credit Unions Limited, known as ABCL, more recently branded Altogether Money, the movement for credit unions. And we set up the twinning partnership, where we are twinned with a couple of credit unions in the state of Georgia, and I've been fortunate enough to be on study tours in the States, learning about the sector. They're probably about 30 to 40 years ahead of us. Credit unions really grew in the States a lot quicker and a bit earlier than they did in Great Britain. And so that was an opportunity to learn what was going on in other credit union systems around the world. So the twinning partnership was really important. But the Americans always point out this is a two-way relationship, that they actually learn as much from us as we learn from them. So it is what I would consider a true partnership.
I think we've been able to also expand the range and the nature of the support that we're able to provide, that now goes beyond the provision of savings and loan services. Obviously, that's the kind of fundamental business of the credit union. But we now have things like our community fund, which launched, I want to say 4 years ago now, and has been successful in supporting good causes right around the UK. Tell us a little bit about that.
So our community fund, the money within the community funds comes from part of our members' lottery, and I'm always amazed by the generosity of our members. there's a number of other areas that they make donations to as well. But through our members lottery, that gives us a pool of money which any member can send in a suggestion to be considered, where we can make relatively small grants, normally up to £1,000, sometimes £2,000, to individual organisations. And these are the organisations that our members care about, organisations that are close to their heart. And again, it's just a different way that a credit union can serve its members, helping them to serve their communities and the causes that they hold dear to their heart.
Yeah, I think it's great to be in the position where we can make a difference to different charitable and community activities. I think one of them that goes right back to our origins in Royal Mail is our support for the Rowland Hill Fund. I'm not sure that necessarily all of our members would be familiar with what the Rowland Hill Fund does, so maybe just give us an insight into their work.
Yeah, so the Rowland Hill Fund is an organisation which supports postal people, not just Royal Mail people, but all postal people. And they give a range of financial support. So it could be someone that's got a short-term financial issue and needs a little bit of help paying a mortgage for a short period of time, maybe possibly due to ill health. I saw a really inspiring story about a postal worker whose son had a very severe disability, and they were struggling to get the necessary equipment that he needed, and the Rowland Hill Fund stepped in and supported that. So we're really proud that Commsave and Commsave members are able to make an annual donation to the Rowland Hill Fund, because it does support the wider postal family.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the things about the credit union movement that you've touched on in terms of that idea of people helping people. It is kind of incumbent on us where we can to try to find different ways to support. So it's great that we're in a position to be able to do that. So we've touched on where we've come from and kind of idea of where the credit union's at right now. I thought it'd be interesting to perhaps end with some thoughts about what the future holds. We're seeing, I mentioned already, the trend in terms of a reduction in the number of credit unions, but an increase in our spread and impact, if you like. And there are opportunities on the horizon with new legislation that's being put through to enable credit unions to expand their common bonds further and expand their catchment with that. And in terms of things like the products and services that we offer and what the future might hold there, give us an idea, help build a picture, I suppose, for us of where you see the movement perhaps going over the next 5 to 10 years or so.
So Commsave has a really good digital offering, but things need to evolve and make sure that we don't get left behind. And so making sure that our technology is up to date. And part of that has been relevant. So generally, the credit union membership is an ageing population. And so what we need to do is find ways that we can engage with younger people. And to me, that is by offering products and services that meet their needs and being there for people. The mainstream lenders are happy to lend to people with the very best credit scores. They will always get the best rates. Actually, credit unions take a much wider view. If people have had some financial difficulties in their past, we don't write people off. It's not a computer says no approach. We will talk to members, and providing credit is affordable, we have quite a wide risk appetite. And so I think we find a niche there. That's not to say we can't serve people with the very best credit scores, because some of our loan products are very competitive in the market. Certainly our savings products are very competitive in the market, but it's making sure that we continue to serve people in ways which are relevant for them. And I guess, to sum it up in one word, it's relevance. Moving forward, we need to make sure that we are relevant for the future.
I definitely feel that's one of the things that has struck me in the time that I've worked for Commsave and learning more about the history, and indeed through our conversation today, it is that through that, the change that we've gone through, which has been significant, and all the developments that we've had, it is all still rooted in that key credit union ethos of putting our members first.
Yeah, and if you're not here to do that, I would question what's the point of being here.
Yeah.
So to me, it's really, really simple. When you get, Commsave is a decent sized organisation now. I think we employ 55 people. We've got approaching £130 million in assets. So we need to make sure that whatever we do is fit for purpose, that we run a sound and secure organisation, because that's their members' savings that they put with us. So we need to make sure that we run the organisation appropriate to our size. But what that does enable us to do, it does enable us to continue to invest in new technology. And my own view of the world of credit unions, I think membership will continue to grow. When I talk to younger people, when you talk about the ethos of people helping people, and you're here to serve, and you're not here to extract value to pay external shareholders, all of that resonates with the younger people that I speak to.
Yeah.
And I think that is the audience that we need to capture going forward. But people aren't going to come to you just because it's warm words and good intentions. They need good products and services too. So we need to meet all of that as an organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good place to finish on, actually. Richard, it's been a real pleasure having this conversation with you. We're grateful to you for giving us the time today. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And thank you to everybody who's been watching us at home today. I hope you've enjoyed watching this conversation with Richard and getting a bit of an insight into Commsave's history over 35 years now and our future potential. So thank you very much for watching. Please do like the video, leave us a comment and subscribe. Keep an eye out for information on our social media channels about our 35th anniversary, which is on the 7th of August. And we're very much looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of Commsave Conversations.